that is until we saw this, which I took this snapshot with my cell phone. It came out great, actually. I took this snapshot from the helicopter because this, I knew what it was. This, unmistakably, is a prison. A big one. And Kandahar's prison, Sarposa prison, is a really, really famous prison. It's famous because in 2008, the Taliban attacked that prison and freed everybody in it. There was a tanker truck bomb, a massive vehicle bomb at the front gate. Then right away, a suicide bomber at the back gate. Then with both of the gates breached, dozens of Taliban guys stormed the place on motorcycles carrying machine guns and rocket-propelled grenades. They opened the cell blocks. They freed over 1,000 people, including hundreds of Taliban prisoners. That was in 2008. Up on that chopper last summer, I asked, is that Sarposa prison? Yes was the answer, and you can see how much tougher the security is there now. It's a secure facility, totally modernized security. That jailbreak will never happen again. And you know, it's true. Another giant hundreds of prisoners released jailbreak like the one in 2008 has not happened there again. This time, the giant hundreds of prisoners released jailbreak happened through a tunnel.
A brazen prison escape by any standard. A tunnel more than 1 kilometre long which took several months to dig. The result, hundreds of inmates escaped from a prison in the Afghan city of Kandahar, many of them top Taliban commanders, bomb makers and mine experts. And their escape will have repercussions. There have long been security concerns over the level of freedom given by Afghan jail authorities to inmates. After what seems to have been such a well-organized and successful escape by men deemed a serious threat, those same questions are bound to be asked again. But the Afghan government's ability to handle its own security, especially in the south of the country, will no doubt come into sharp focus once again.
Which is amazing in an engineering sort of way, but also to have that many Taliban prisoners released into Kandahar city now at the start of what they call the fighting season in Afghanistan.
Each of these commanders leads at least 400 fighters, and some of them have a political role in the Taliban. Now these commanders will be leading attacks, so this will have a really bad impact on security and the political situation in the area.
But we start in Afghanistan with a prison break that looks for all the world like an inside job. How did 500 prisoners leave their cells, climb down into a tunnel, and escape without a single prison official noticing? Come on, spring and summer are fighting season, and with a major cadre of newly freed fighters and commanders, the Taliban is poised to push back against our troops. That report. Joining us now from Montpelier, Vermont, to talk about just how troubled our mission in Afghanistan is, diplomat Peter Galbraith. He worked for the UN in Kabul, and he is no fan of our Afghan policy. Welcome, Peter.
Elliot, good to be with you.
So here's my question. Is this horrific, sort of unfortunate fact pattern just a metaphor for everything that is wrong with our Afghan policy?
Well, it's a metaphor for what's wrong with our Afghan policy, and it's a big problem in its own right. We have spent billions of dollars in Kandahar province trying to round up the Taliban to arrest people. These 450 people who escaped are some of the product of that billions of dollars of effort. Now, as the fighting season's begun, they're free. But what it really underscores is that the counterinsurgency strategy on which we are embarked is not working and cannot work. The counterinsurgency strategy depends on having an Afghan partner. It depends on the government winning the trust of the population. When they win the trust of the population, people are then going to be prepared to turn against the Taliban and to inform. And this escape took place with not one person in Kandahar informing on the very unusual developments, such as you were discussing earlier, how they dispersed the soil.
You know, Peter, it strikes me almost as an impossibility that this wasn't an inside job. But put that aside for a moment. I want to ask a more fundamental question. Who was the enemy? And I ask that not in some sort of naive way, obviously, but is it al-Qaeda? Is it the Taliban? It seems to me that the entire effort in Afghanistan was predicated on beating back al-Qaeda. We've been told there may be only 50 or 100 total in the country, much more in Pakistan. And, of course, we know that is a fraught relationship. But are we fighting against the Taliban or negotiating with them? You hear inconsistent things. From your perspective, you've studied this. Who is the enemy and what should the objective here be?
Well, the enemy, which is the reason we invaded Afghanistan nearly 10 years ago, of course, was Al-Qaeda, because it was from Afghanistan's territory that the September 11th attacks were launched. The Taliban had been sheltering the Al-Qaeda, but I think most people do not believe they had any involvement in it. But I want to come back to the inside job question, because actually I think it's much more important. We have an idea in the United States that there are two sides to the conflict. There's the Taliban on one side, and then it's the NATO, and we have the Karzai government as our corrupt and ineffective ally, but he's our ally. When in reality, the government side and the Taliban cooperate, as well as on occasion fight each other. In the Pashtun areas of Afghanistan, virtually everybody has somebody in the family in both camps. They're in touch with each other. They're doing business. So while I don't have any evidence of an inside job here, it's certainly very consistent with a pattern in which the people we're supporting are actually, in many occasions, working with the people we're fighting.
You know, Peter, it sounds to me like you're saying something so fundamental that people have just got to hear it once again. We are, in a way, being played by the Karzai government that has maintained a foot in each camp. On Monday, they may deal with us. On Tuesday, they deal with the Taliban. They are almost indifferent to who wins. And what you're saying is that we are there without a true, honest ally in our corner.
Well, we absolutely don't have an ally. We do not have a government that's capable of winning the trust of the population. There's no Afghan police that's capable of providing law and order. The Afghan military is a questionable institution. But more importantly, if not the government, the individuals, they have their feet in both camps. They're collaborating with each other, and they're making billions of dollars off of us. When we hire a security company, that security company is then paying off the Taliban not to attack, or if they think their contract is in danger, they're paying off the Taliban to attack to demonstrate their value. The drug trade, it involves people who are associated with the government and people in the Taliban. And it just goes on. The problem is it is a fundamentally corrupt system. Our involvement, our assistance, our expenditures have fueled the corruption. And there's no way for us to get back on track. We cannot reform Karzai and his cohorts to make them into some kind of honest government that's capable of winning the support of the Afghan people.
Peter, I wonder if perhaps the tragedy of this jailbreak will somehow crystallize the moment when we step back and re-examine what is going on in Afghanistan. It is a broken policy in a broken country without any rationale for our risking not only the lives of good American soldiers, but more money than people understand. It is simply a waste. It's time to reevaluate. Anyway, Peter, we've got to move on, but thanks so much for being with us.
Well, very good talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.